All right. So y'all know maybe a couple days, maybe 8 days ago, something like that. Piers Morgan had an interview with Andrew Tate, and let me say, I saw most of it, and by the looks of it, I would be very surprised if Andrew Tate had Piers Morgan at his personal house, because Candace Owens be over at Andrew Tate. We did the interview at Andrew Tate's house. So did Pat Bet Davis, and they both did interviews at his house. But I seriously doubt with Piers, because Piers don't agree with you and we have dialogue. He gonna flame you a little bit and come at you hard. And then it also, do you think he would have that energy at that kind of at the house? You know, that kind of.
Well, of course he would. If I just feel like Piers is going to be himself no matter where he goes. However, Andrew Tate is going to. I mean, it's going to be based off the nature of the relationship between Tate and Piers is going to determine whether or not he invited him back to his house. So I don't know
if that was at the house.
I don't know how the relationship was, because he's interviewed him before, right? How did the first?
Yeah, but he's done those interviews in London.
Oh, okay.
When he was calling a cesspit. But Michael NOS is doing a video to this, and he's talking about, I think it's honed in on the portion of the Hamas portion and where Piers is asking Andrew Tate, are you in support of Hamas? And that's where we zoomed into.
Okay. But Andrew Tate has said he's very selective as to who he allows to come back to his pad, and I can understand.
Or come to his pad. Period. You said back means again.
No, I said pad. I didn't mean to say back if I said back, but I meant to say that he's a lot. He's very selective.
No.
Who he allows to come to his pad.
No.
Yes. Don't make me burp on you.
No.
On October the 7th, an act of terrorism.
I think, Piers, it is peddling asininities for you to pretend that enslaving
So you sound
people...
like Jeremy Corbyn.
No, let me answer the question.
15 times he refused to answer the question.
Let me answer the question.
You're now up
I'm
to
not
about...
refusing.
You're now about 3 or 4.
If you look...
Are they a terror group or not?
They're one team's freedom fighter, and they're deemed a terrorist
What do
group.
you think?
I think that if you lock people in an open-air prison and steal their land, they're going to retaliate.
So they're not a terror group?
I think they're going to retaliate.
They're not a terror group?
One team's terrorist is another
Okay, we're
team's
now up
freedom
to about
fighter.
8. Are they a terror group?
And also, another thing I want to make clear to you, Piers.
Only Jeremy Corbyn has done this.
Done what?
Refused to answer the question.
I think that what they are doing is seemingly deemed an act of terror by the people that the terror...
Don't use weaselly words.
They're not weaselly. Of course the Israelis think they're a terror group, and of course the Palestinians think they're freedom fighters.
Most of the...
Hey, just on a side note, why does Piers' hair look like he just went down the roller coaster right at the top?
Stupid that you're asking the question.
Most of the civilized world thinks they're a terror group who committed an act of terrorism. It's not difficult. What they did was an act of terrorism.
And I think that if Israel continues to conduct acts of terrorism on the Palestinian people, they're going to do nothing but strengthen the reaction.
Well, that's a different conversation I'm about to have with you about Israel's response. But before I get there, one more time, is Hamas a terror group who committed an act of terrorism?
I think that when you lock people in an open-air prison, you're going to have to expect retaliation. No, because I have to... There's people who are... First things I want to say, Piers.
If you don't mind me saying, I think it's spineless.
Sure.
I do.
That's fine.
You sound like Jeremy Corbyn.
Well, that is an insult.
Did you see my interview with him?
No.
Right, 15 times last week I asked him the same question. 15 times he prevaricated and wouldn't answer. Eventually, when someone does that enough times, you know what they really think.
Okay.
You don't think they're a terror group.
Well, let me answer.
You don't think they're a terror group.
No, what I think is this. On certain
Because I'd be really curious what you think an act of terror is if it's not massacring 1,500 innocent people,
it's not
including Holocaust survivors, kidnapping babies.
Piers, we're going to talk about that when we talk about what Israel has done.
But when we get there, it'll be in the context of you not admitting that was an act of terror.
Well, let me answer the question for the final time. I am a realist. And as a realist, sometimes you do not come to the conclusion of labeling good guys and bad guys. The world is not black and white.
Hamas are bad guys.
No, the world is not black and white. The world is actually very gray. Anybody who sits and thinks there's clearly a good guy,
there's nothing gray about what Hamas did,
and clearly a bad guy does not understand how the world works. And as a realist, what you do is you look at scenarios and you understand why they happen, how unfortunate they are, how unfortunate the loss of human life is, how civilians die on both sides, how innocents are dying in a chess game played by the elites on both sides. Both sides, you have innocent people who didn't even vote for the person making the decisions, who are ensuring their death, signing their death warrants. It's unfortunate on both sides. But listen, sir, you would not advocate Russia doing any of the things to Ukraine that Israel is doing to to Palestine. You would not sit here.
Russia has been doing exactly that.
Russia has not done a fraction of the things to Ukraine that Israel has done to Palestine.
Russia illegally invaded a sovereign democratic country and has committed a barbaric rampage, trying to seize as much of Ukraine as it can, bombing maternity hospitals, killing innocent women and children.
Let me ask you a question.
Right? Don't even try and have some kind of
this is genuine
equivocation of this.
I will. A Hamas rocket, a tiny Hamas rocket that can make a pothole in the road, and then they get hit back with cruise missiles.
Make a pothole in the road, it can blow people up. What do you mean pothole? It's not there to make potholes.
A drone attack, it did nothing. It damaged some shingles. If Russia decided to then respond with a missile attack on a hospital and annihilate 800 people,
it has been.
Do you think that would be allowed?
That's exactly what it has been.
Would you advocate for that?
Because Hamas uses the hospitals
as a headquarters. Have you seen the state of Mariupol, which they leveled to the ground?
The Ukrainians did level it, you're correct.
No, the Russians
2014.
The Russians leveled Mariupol.
And my question to you is, would you advocate those reactions? Let me ask you another question, Piers. This is a genuine question.
Let me ask you a question. This is crazy. You know, it's funny, it's Woke Wednesday, and he's not woke. He's not everything that diverges from some totally present mainstream right-wing or left-wing paradigm is necessarily woke, okay? He's not. He's a kind of a right-winger. He's like a Muslim-ish brute, I guess. You know, he's not... He's got aspects of right-wingedness to him, and then he's got a very modernist streak to him, and an apparently amoral, at best, streak. He claims to be Muslim, but, you know, anywho, it's complicated with him. But I wouldn't call him a lefty or a woke person. But he's he's also just not
I wouldn't say that either.
Right about what terrorism is.
So just to comment on that, no, he's not. No, Tate is far from woke, but I see what's going on. He's saying that you really don't know who the good guys and bad guys are. So by him saying Hamas is a bad guy, he can't say that because everybody's wrong on both sides. And by them coming out, Tate is feeling like Hamas doing what they're doing is just pinned up anger for the treatment they've been treated from Israel. So that's why he can't just automatically say that he condones Hamas. And I don't
necessarily agree with him and his views as to why he's not giving a blatant answer. Yeah, I don't. But I understand his point of view.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily agree with it.
Okay.
Yeah, Piers is like spot on, just making him answer the question.
He could say in a totally coherent way, he could say, I disagree with the very existence of the state of Israel. I think the regime is illegitimate. I don't agree with whatever Zionism. I don't agree with. I think that the Israelis should go back to Europe or something. You could say all of those things and still admit that the Hamas terror attack was a terror attack. And he could do that because the definition of terrorism is not contingent upon whether or not you like this regime or this nation state or these borders or those borders. Terrorism is when you target civilians to achieve a political end. That is obviously what Hamas did. This is why we have the Geneva Convention protections, which is to afford certain luxuries to combatants in times of war if they follow certain rules, the chief of which is don't target civilians. Is when you target civilians, that's an act of terrorism. So they obviously are that. That is what they do. And I guess what Andrew Tate could say is, I support that kind of terrorism. But he doesn't want to say that because it doesn't sound good if you say, I support terrorism. So he's got to walk around it and he uses the silly line, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. As if to say that all of these issues are merely subjective. They're just from one's own personal perspective. But that's not true. We actually have reason, and we can reason about these things. This is why there's an entire notion of just war theory. Justice in going to war and justice in conducting war. And under no even mildly serious reading of just war theory can you defend what Hamas did. Keep going.
Let me ask you a question, because I want to understand your point of view.
It's actually my interview of you.
Yeah, but you tried to understand mine. I just want to understand your point of view. If I believed, or if Israel believed, that one of the people in your house was a terrorist and decided to destroy your entire house and kill your entire family, would you sit and say, well, maybe there was a terrorist inside, I accept that? Or would you be enraged? Genuine question.
I don't think you can take an individual person's response.
Well, it's a bunch of individual people in Gaza.
Yeah,
They're
sure.
people, individuals with thoughts and dreams and aspirations which are being annihilated. 15-year-old girls without legs because of cruise missiles.
Let's come to
they
that.
are individual people. They're not cattle, Piers.
Let's come to
They're
that.
people.
Right, and so were the people in Israel on October the 7th.
And that's why it's so heinous, which is my exact point.
But not heinous enough to reach your bar of terrorism.
It's not about reaching bar of terrorism. It's understanding why things happen.
By not saying it, you've made your position clear. Just as Jeremy Corbyn did. And to pretend you're any different is ridiculous.
Yeah, Andrew Tate is almost making a point, which is a criticism of the Israeli policies in Gaza, or the fact that Gaza has effectively been a kind of an open-air prison, or the recognition that it's basically an impossible situation. I think one could make a serious argument for those things. What you can't make an argument for is that Hamas is not a terrorist group. They do, if that word has any meaning at all, they are terrorists. And then he falls back on one of the stupidest platitudes. One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, which is to just concede our entire reason. It's to say, no, we can't, there's no such thing as objective truth. We can't look at this in any way detached from our own personal passions about a subject. But that's not true. You can say, no, this army wore uniforms, came from a legitimate authority, targeted military targets, made sure that their military attack was proportional, meaning not in terms of the number of casualties, but in the war aims, made sure that the good to be achieved was greater than the evil that would be done in the commission of it, made sure that the war was being undertaken from good motives, meant this, that, and the other thing, checked all of the boxes. It's not like just war theory is some new idea that just cropped up. We've known about it since Cicero, okay? It's developed over a long period of time. But he just throws his hands up in the air. That's the most woke part of what he just said. Forget about Israel or Palestine. The most woke part of what he said is this subjectivism, this relativism, to say, well, what is terrorism anyway? You know, man, like when you really think about it. Man, that was a great clip, huh? Now, hey, whoa.
So I'm going to say, yeah, I can see on both sides. Like on one end, you can't just write it off as if, it's just, what is terrorism? You can't write that off. But on the other end, I can see why people that have been smothered and constrained so long kind of want to uproar and fight. But it's nothing good on both ends. And like I said before, that no matter once this has settled down, it's still no peace in the Middle East. So you're gonna pray that it'll be a big window of time before the next issue.
I mean, I kind of feel like what I still kind of agree with Michael about, if you're not going to say it, then it kind of says your stance on it. And based off of the quote that he gave, is not subjective.
He don't want to be locked in as saying that he supports
Exactly.
But he don't want to generally go out and say this. You know why? Because for one, Tate is he's Muslim, but I don't know what level that he calls himself on as a Muslim. But he don't want to be the one that say, yeah, I go against it, because then you might have your Muslim brothers and sisters coming at you because you say you're Muslim, and they think automatically you're supposed to support whatever happens on the Palestine side. Mm-hmm. So he's trying to keep it neutral, say his opinion, but he don't want to pick a side because that could be hard on him as a Muslim. Because he got a lot of his people that he follows are in support of what goes on that side, Hamas and all.
Yeah, well, it's kind of obvious to me.
Oh, for sure, no doubt. But he's playing it neutral to keep himself out of jam.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially everything that's going on with him right now and where he stands and how he's trying to move. I get it.
Yeah.
All
right, man. Light comes. Oh, go and lead into the water, baby.
All right, great people. Thank you for watching another episode of Sibo and Snapper. Come back with us, guys. Join us for some more dope content. If you're feeling this and you want to see more views, politics, slightly, come back, subscribe to the channel, share the video, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right.